How the Beatles revolutionized music forever. It all began with four young men from Liverpool: John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. Four ordinary boys who would go on to change everything we know about music. Before the Beatles, pop was simple, catchy, predictable, and safe. After the Beatles, nothing was ever the same again. This is the story of how the Beatles revolutionized music forever. To understand their impact, we have to go back to the early 1960s. Rock and roll was losing its spark. Elvis Presley had set the stage, Chuck Berry had created the rhythm, but by 1962, the magic was fading. Then came four kids from Liverpool, playing endless nights in the smoky clubs of Hamburg, Germany. They didn't know it yet, but they were preparing to change the world. When She Loves You hit the airwaves in 1963, something exploded. Teenagers screamed, cried, and fainted. The newspapers called it Beatlemania. For the first time, music wasn't just heard, it was felt. The Beatles didn't invent fandom, but they turned it into a global phenomenon. Every concert became chaos. Every smile became a symbol. But behind those cheerful songs, the Beatles were already changing. They wanted more than fame. They wanted art. Inside Abbey Road Studios, everything changed. Until then, studios were just places to record songs. But for the Beatles, the studio itself became an instrument. They experimented with sound: backward tapes, layered harmonies, Indian sitars, orchestras, and even random noises. With producer George Martin, often called the fifth Beatle, they broke every rule in music. Tomorrow Never Knows sounded like a dream. Eleanor Rigby turned a pop song into a tragic classical. And A Day in the Life was a masterpiece of sonic storytelling. They weren't just writing songs, they were redefining music itself. At first, their lyrics were simple: "I want to hold your hand, love me do." But as they grew, so did their words. Paul McCartney's Yesterday carried deep melancholy. John Lennon began writing from the soul, about pain, confusion, and truth. Nowhere Man wasn't about romance. It was about identity. Strawberry Fields Forever was about memory, imagination, and loss. The Beatles gave pop music depth. They turned 3-minute songs into emotional journeys. When the Beatles landed in America in 1964, it wasn't just a band arriving. It was a cultural revolution. The British invasion had begun. Haircuts, accents, humor, style, they influenced everything. They represented freedom in a world ready for change. From the protests of the 60s to the Summer of Love, their music became the voice of a generation. They didn't shout about politics, but they inspired millions to think differently. By the mid-60s, the Beatles were unstoppable. Every new album rewrote the rules. Rubber Soul brought artistic maturity. Revolver introduced psychedelia. And then came Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It wasn't just an album, it was an experience. A fictional band inside a real one. Songs blended seamlessly. Every sound had meaning. The cover was art. The studio became theater. Pop music became high culture. Once again, the Beatles led the way forward. As fame consumed them, the Beatles looked inward. In 1968, they traveled to India, seeking peace, wisdom, and purpose. They studied meditation, met gurus, and discovered new spiritual worlds.
George Harrison's love for Indian music and philosophy changed the band forever. Songs like Within You, Without You and Across the Universe became windows to the soul. Through them, Western music met the East, and millions of fans discovered a new kind of harmony. But revolutions always come with a cost. By 1969, tensions grew. Arguments, exhaustion, business problems. The dream was breaking. Still, even in their final days, they created magic. Abbey Road, Let It Be. When they crossed that zebra crossing one last time, it wasn't just an album cover. It was the closing of a chapter. In 1970, the Beatles broke up. The world cried. But they didn't end music. They freed it.
Decades later, their influence is everywhere. Every artist who experiments in a studio, every songwriter who pours their heart into lyrics, every band that dares to be different owes something to the Beatles. They paved the way for Pink Floyd, Queen, Nirvana, Radiohead, Coldplay, and so many more. They proved that pop could be intelligent, that sound could have soul, that music could evolve. Even today, in the age of streaming, remixes, and artificial intelligence, the Beatles remain timeless. Their melodies are sampled by hip-hop artists. Their harmonies inspire pop producers. Their words still heal hearts. And even when technology recreates their voices, the emotion still feels real. Because the Beatles were never just about sound. They were about connection, about truth, about love. John Lennon once said something that shocked the world. The Beatles are more popular than Jesus. It was controversial, but maybe in spirit, he was right. Because the Beatles became more than a band. They became a symbol of what creativity can do. From the wild joy of twist and shout to the pure hope of imagine, their legacy will never fade. They didn't just make music, they changed humanity's relationship with sound. They showed us that music can question, comfort, and unite. And though decades have passed, their message still echoes louder than ever. You need is love. 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 And if you believe in the power of music, if you believe that sound can change the world, then make sure to join our journey. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story that shaped music forever. Together, we'll keep the magic of history alive. One song, one legend, and one revolution at a time. Because this is more than just music. This is the Beatles.